In this video, I'm going to show you how to be a Gen Ed rater for one of the learning objectives for the Gen Ed curriculum assessment. So what we'll start off with here is the rubric, and what I have is the Technology, Mathematics, and Sciences objective rubric. So this was designed by faculty from this area, and they have chosen 3 competencies that represent this outcome. So the outcome, which is given by the university system, is that students will use the scientific method and laboratory procedures or mathematical and computational methods to analyze data, solve problems, and explain natural phenomena. So the keywords there are analyze, solve, and explain. So faculty decided that students should be able to demonstrate that they have existing knowledge, that they can draw conclusions, and that they can perform calculations. So in order to assess student work, we need to look at sample problems that they have solved where they demonstrate their ability to calculate, explain, and draw conclusions. So what I've done is asked 2 science faculty to provide artifacts that represent these kinds of problems. And so we've got one here. This is artifact A, just for a sample problem to practice the assessment. There are 4 parts to this question. Then there's a second artifact down here, but we'll just look at this one. Now this artifact was taken from an actual exam that students took, and they received a grade for it for their exam based on the goals for that class. But we're going to be pulling this artifact out of that class and assessing it using the rubric, again, which assesses existing knowledge, conclusions, and calculation. I've got the rubric down here as part of this evaluator packet, but I'll just use the one that's attached separately. So, once again, we're going to assess students' existing knowledge, their ability to draw conclusions, and their ability to perform calculations in this sample problem, or series of problems. So the first question is asking for students to list the rate when they've been given a couple of columns of information. And fortunately for me, this instructor has already checked that their math is correct. So they've given the answers, they've given their rationale for those answers, or the equation that they followed, and then an equation for each cell that they filled out here. So all of this tells me, if I were to be assessing this student, that they have performed excellent calculations. I'll give them a 4. Let me show you why. So down here we're looking at calculation. If they did not attempt a calculation, they would have received 0. So then I would have put a 0 here, but they did attempt it, so they went beyond a 0. And I can go all the way up to calculations attempted are essentially all successfully and sufficiently comprehensive to solve the problem. And that happened. But we also see that the calculations themselves are presented in a clear and concise way. And notice, they've listed the equation they followed and all of their calculations in as concise a way as I can imagine. Therefore, they've received the highest possible score of a 4. Now, let's go on to the conclusions and read what they're supposed to do there. Does the student state a logical conclusion, or a conclusion that is a logical extrapolation from the inquiry findings? Again, we know that they got the correct answer, but what was their conclusion? And notice how this last question asks about their conclusion. As the enzyme concentration moved from 0 to 100, the amount of oxygen released increased, causing the disk to shoot to the top in less time. It sounds like that is a logical extrapolation of the results that they gave. It isn't some random or arbitrary description. So let's see, it is a logical extrapolation from the inquiry findings. So it wasn't a general conclusion. It wasn't ambiguous. They did state something. So we could definitely give it a 3. So it responds to the inquiry findings. But they also describe something that isn't in the results that they gave, that actually explains what happened. So I would give them a 4 there too. Their conclusions were a 4. Now the last area is their existing knowledge. So did this student demonstrate their existing knowledge? synthesizes in-depth information from relevant sources representing various points of view or approaches. Going back to the question, they're not really asked to explain background knowledge or integrate information from other sources. Therefore, I can't answer that question, so I leave that one blank. That's it. I just went through and used the rubric to assess the student's ability to perform a calculation and draw conclusions, and I can't actually assess their existing knowledge because they weren't asked to demonstrate it. And I would do the same thing for the second artifact, which is from a different class. It has different questions, but I can look at how well they arrived at their solution. If their conclusion is ambiguous or specific or thorough, and if they're asked to draw in additional sources, then I can assess that one as well. Looking at it, it doesn't appear to me that they had to draw on existing knowledge, so I can't actually assess that one. My guess is this would be closer to a 3, maybe a 4 on calculation and a 3 on conclusions, because that looked a little ambiguous, but I didn't go through that one entirely. So that's how you do it. Keep in mind that the artifacts that are submitted are not being assessed within their classes. They're being assessed with respect to these gen ed objectives, which are institution-wide, not course-specific. I hope this helps.